Hello, my name is Dave Dye. I'm an architect and I teach architectural classes at Grand Rapids Community College. We're here today at the Rapids Central Station to talk to Jeff Remtema and Jim Vandermolen from Progressive A&E about their design for this new Rapids Central Station. It is a LEED certified building. What is LEED certification?
LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It was formed by the United States Green Building Council in the year 2000 as a way to begin to establish baselines for what a green building is and how to put a green building together. So it really created a nice way for us to be able to compare one building to another and come up with a solid baseline for how to put together a green building.
Okay. What makes this building so unique in terms of LEED certification? What are some aspects of this building that make it a LEED certified building?
LEED divides buildings up into 5 categories. Sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy efficiency, materials and resources. And so this building incorporates a little strategies from all those 5 different categories. So for example, out here, you notice that the surfaces are all very white and light colored. That helps with what's called the urban heat island effect. So that during the summer, like out here right now, it's technically a lot cooler than it would be if standing on that black paving asphalt that surrounds the site. Other features include such things as a high efficiency water landscaping equipment, so that the amount of water that we're using to irrigate the landscaping is 50% less than what you would typically find on an irrigated building. Other features include the porous paving around the trees and in these brick paver systems, so that when you get rain events, a large percentage of the water actually flows into the site rather than off-site through stormwater detention systems.
Okay. If I may add something.
Sure.
This entire site is a brownfield site. So years and years ago, this corner was a gas station, and it was contaminated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a laundry building over here. There's a warehouse building. There are other activities around the area that actually contaminants leach into the soil here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of investigation of the environmental contamination and the strategies put together to clean up the site and remedy it before we could build. If this project didn't happen here, that wouldn't have happened.
This would still be a contaminated site.
That's right. So the fact that we built here and we did remediate the contamination, improved the groundwater simply for that reason.
Okay. So now do you want to take us into the building and start showing us different parts of the building and how they help with the LEED certification?
Sure.
Okay. Why don't we go on into the building here? Okay, I understand this is an important part of the LEED certification, and we're standing on it right here. What can you tell us about this floor?
Well, as part of the materials and resources category, recycled content is a large portion of the points that you can get in LEED. And this floor happens to be made out of recycled glass from bottles that have been recycled through the municipal system. So it's all, been to people's homes and come back and ended up ultimately as a floor here at ITP.
Okay, is there any other materials in this building that are along that same idea of recycled materials?
Sure. In fact, everywhere you look. 75% of the materials, by cost actually, by a weighted cost system, are recycled in this building. So the aluminum and the mullions, percentages of the glass,
Steel,
the steel, ceiling tiles, just about everything you look at has a certain percentage of recycled content
it's not
within
just
it.
The recycled content, is also that it is recyclable. So if in the future the building comes down or gets renovated, the products have a second life. So again, the steel and the aluminum and the glass and the concrete block can all be ground up and used for other things.
Okay.
So there's a minimal of materials that cannot be reused, and we maximize the amount of materials that can be reused.
Okay. What about the lighting in this building? Is there anything in terms of energy conservation or LEED certification in the lighting of this building?
Well, there's a large surface area of glass to help bring natural light deep into the building. Also, all the lighting is on daylight control sensors.
Light control sensors and high energy efficient lamps, lamping systems.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the other things you may notice about this building is that there's very little odor or smell in here. Low VOCs or volatile organic compounds is also a large part of the indoor environments category of LEED. So the materials were specifically selected in this building to have very low off-gassing So you don't get a lot of new building smell when you walk in here. Mostly what you're smelling is the cleaning products.
Carpets, ceiling tiles, the entry mat, for instance, it's adhered down with a low or no VOC adhesive. Adhesives and paint typically are very noxious, but we specified products that were either very low or no off-gassing.
Okay. Now, and that also reduces the environmental pollution inside the building.
Absolutely.
Inside the building, right. Okay. So, healthy building potential.
Yeah, the healthy building gets to be a critical item for people living in this building.
That's right.
What about that structure out there? Is that...
That's part of it.
Okay. Now, I understand that this area is a very important part of the LEED certification. Why is it such an important part of this LEED certification?
Well, the very nature of the project itself is about sustainable practices. It's a bus transportation center. Public transportation utilizes renewable resources in a much more efficient way. More people are traveling with less use of gasoline. And the system is looking at purchasing new buses that use biofuels or other types of energy systems to increase the energy efficiency. So the very heart and soul of the project is about energy efficiency.
Okay, and with these buses, it's a good example of it right here. Now, is there anything about storm retainage when the water comes out of here? Another part of LEED certification is what they do with the storm water. Now, what happens with the storm water when it leaves this area during a rain?
The storm water all collects both off the canopy and off the bus pathway into these strips here that run along the length on either side that regulates the flow of the water into the city storm system. So rather than having a big event of rain and having a big surge of storm water, it comes through at a slower rate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also important to note that when it does rain, all the suspended solids, all the grit and stuff that gets picked up from the concrete and the surrounding areas, as well as the nitrogen and phosphorus, gets scrubbed out before going into the city system. So it's not plugging it up and causing algae blooms and things like that further downstream.
But it's slightly processed before it's dumped into the city system. Okay.
Both on the site, in the front and the back, and in the under the canopy, there are areas of landscaping, and the white concrete, the white surface of the structure all contribute to alleviating that heat island issue that we talked about before. The asphalt is black, it soaks up heat and it radiates and it makes an uncomfortable environment. The white concrete tends to reflect the heat and the sunlight away so that it doesn't create a heat sink here. And that helps all the surrounding buildings in their heating and cooling.
Yeah, one of the parts of an urban area is that it's very dark and just soaks up the heat, and this reflects it. Okay.
And then just the shading alone that happens from the canopy and the flow of air creates a cool zone here.
And it is fairly cool here. I'm amazed during this day. I was sweating and I came here, I'm cooled off, so that's great.
Again, with the recycled content in the steel, and then also the steel being recyclable, the canopy material, energy efficient lighting systems, these tree structures made out of rebar.
And the rebar is 100% recycled.
The rebar is 100% recycled.
Yeah, that's made out of old cars.
You can see there's vines that are planted that will grow up and take the shape of trees to, again, improve the oxygen, carbon dioxide exchange, right? So they'll create little microclimates of better air. You know, when you've got buses around that have fumes, it's good to offset that with the planting.
Yeah, the old diesel fuels.
And then there's a big planting island all throughout. Okay. To do that as well.
Now, Grand Rapids Central, this is for an urban bus system for
and for Greyhound
and other regional bus systems.
Right. That's correct.
So not only does it serve the city, it serves the region.
Right. Exactly. I guess the ideal would be somebody would take the rapid bus down here, get on a intercity bus, and go to Lansing or Detroit or whatever, and do the whole thing using public transportation.
Oh my God!
And eventually, light rail or other type of inner city transportation. This axis down here is a rail right-of-way, so eventually Amtrak could be part of this. So it's a long-term vision, and we built the facility in order to accommodate that long-term vision.
That's good. That's very good. Okay, we've been talking about LEED certification, but another very important part of architecture is the aesthetics of the building. Jim, you are the project architect on this. What can you tell us about the aesthetics of this building and how you designed it and why you did it?
Okay. The aesthetics of the building are an essential part of environmental sustainability because the Rapid wanted the center to be a drawing card for using public transportation. So their charge to us was to make a facility that was eye-catching, that would draw attention and show public transportation to be something exciting, something of the future, not of the past, something that people would want to participate in because the center was so exciting. Also, they wanted an environment that felt safe, that was sheltered from the hot sun, from rain, from snow. The entire area has snow melt system so that people will not be dealing with ice or snow and the buses will move efficiently. They wanted it to be a real civic space. A lot of bus centers, most bus centers have separate islands that the buses pull up around, and then for people to transfer from one to the other, they have to cross a roadway, which is not very safe. We came up with this idea of having this large civic plaza that could actually be a place where the community comes together. There's seating areas, there's plug-ins for street vendors to sell hot dogs and coffee and juice and things like that. There's information kiosks, there's plantings. It's a place that's pleasant to just be and not just to run from one bus to another. And that's a drawing card. The design of the center then had to cover this large area in an efficient way, and this tension fabric structure is lightweight but so strong, it's like tension to 15,000 pounds of tension to give the strength and rigidity of the material and the geometry. The need for that led to the requirement that there be a geometry that was irregular.
Okay.
The curves and the warping in different directions actually give additional strength to the fabric than if it were just straight. So then it became kind of a no-brainer. You take the name The Rapid, that we're in Grand Rapids, that the reason the city's here is because of the rapids, and you say, hey, let's use the metaphor of the rapids as the design of the structure. Energy, movement, flow, this dynamic of the rapids and the river becoming a metaphor for public transportation. It's something that would be very memorable to people as they would see the facility. They get a visual impression of this flowing form as symbolic of public transportation.
Okay, is this going to stay this white? Is that the intent of this, to stay white?
It's actually going to get whiter as time goes on.
It's whiter. Okay.
It comes off the roll as a kind of a khaki tan color. And since they've been putting it up, it's been getting whiter and whiter. And that lets a nice, beautiful, soft glow of light through. But enough of the light characteristics for plants to grow.
Oh, okay. So it transmits the light down, so this is a growing area.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. What type of material is that? I look at that and I'm trying to figure it out.
It's a fiberglass material woven that's coated with Teflon.
Okay.
And it's manufactured in I think only in Hungary or something like that. And then the panels are designed by computer. Each one is cut out and stitched together according to a pattern, and then put on site in the filter ring.
Wow, it looks very dynamic.
The nature of the manufacture of the structure is basically how they make roller coasters.
Oh, okay.
So all bent and assembled off-site and then brought in large pieces and put together, welded, and then the fabric is stretched over it. It sounds so simple. It actually took 6 months to put up. Now, the building by contrast, which
I mean, this one over here,
right,
the rapid
building, that houses the Greyhound, houses a community room that's in the point up there.
Okay.
Houses ticketing and baggage and customer service, security, waiting areas, sessions. We felt that the building needed to be futuristic again to make this message that public transportation is the thing of the future.
Okay.
So get on board if you want to be part of the future. But that it needed a contrast with the form of the canopy.
Because this is very much a flowing form, and that's more of
soft and fluid, and the building is hard-edged and aggressive. This is more feminine, that's more masculine. And the horizontal lines, particularly on this side of the building, are meant to be something that you can read the curves against. We were very conscious.
So that's a backdrop.
Yeah, that's a backdrop to
Okay.
this. We're very conscious that the S-curve flows right by the site. What we wanted is for people stuck in traffic on the S-curve to look over here and say, if I were riding the bus, I'd be home by now. If I were riding the bus, I'd be calm. I wouldn't be fighting the traffic. So we're playing to that crowd.
So it's like a big advertisement
It's a
for the
big
S-curve.
advertisement.
So next time you're stuck in the S-curve, look at the Rapid Transit Central Station and think, I could have been taking the bus.
That's right.
No. Okay, we left the transit area over there. Now we're up on the green roof. What can you tell us about this roof, this green roof here?
Well, this green roof is some really neat stuff. It's a thin system. It's only about 1.5 inches thick, weighs about 7 pounds a square foot, and it's planted with a drought-tolerant sedum. It's just recently been up here only about 2 weeks now, and so it's just beginning to establish itself. But the idea of what it does is it does several really great things. The first is that it helps heat and cool. It helps regulate the temperature inside the building by adding a little bit of mass up here and a little extra insulation. Also, the evapotranspiration process of the plants help keep the building below it cooler on hot, sunny days like today. It also helps a lot with the stormwater events. So when you get a lot of rain, up to 70% of it gets absorbed immediately by these plants. They're what's called the sedum, which is similar to a cactus in that when it's dry, it kind of shrivels up, and you can see some of it's kind of brownish. But when it rains, it almost immediately begins sucking the water up and flowering and getting really big again, and then just doesn't, it just continues to cycle like that. And different species, like I said, it's brand new right now, so you can't see a lot of differentiation, but the different species will begin to fill in according to where different water and heat and temperature and sunlight conditions are occurring.
So you see this sort of migration of colors moving throughout as it finds its happy spot.
Yeah. So it doesn't just stay in this one square, it starts moving around.
Yeah. Within a couple of years, you won't be able to see any differentiation of squares, and the whole system will be about 2, 3, 4 inches high. In several different colors. There'll be some purple and yellow. This was a system that was actually developed in Germany over 30 years ago. So it's a well-tested system in Europe, but it's fairly new here to Michigan.
Yeah, but they've been building these roofs, I understand, for 50 years in Germany, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And what they found is that it protects the membrane underneath, the water membrane, which is what this, similar to this black stuff that doesn't have the roof on it. It actually helps protect that from the UV radiation, from hail damage, and from the pollution and stuff, because we're so close to the S-curve here.
So you don't need to replace the roof as often, which saves in dumping.
Well, how long is this roof generally going to for? When would they have to replace this roof again?
Well, a typical membrane is, 20 years? Roughly 20 years. This roof in Germany, they've pulled some off that are over 30 years old and found that the membreen was still as good as the day they put it in, so haven't had to do any maintenance at all on it.
Okay, so this helps in the longevity of the roof.
Okay. There's a bee over there.
There's a bee over there.
So this is also a place for
smaller habitat.
Smaller habitat.
It is a habitat in the middle of the city.
Yeah, and some of the more established roofs, there'll be birds' nests up here.
Oh my gosh!
Butterflies,
ducks and geese.
Ducks and geese.
Ducks and geese. Hopefully not too many of those, but you'll see lots of like robins and sparrows and things. Will really like to nest up here, as well as butterflies. Come back in the early spring. There'll probably be clouds of them up here because it's a very protected habitat for them, and they love the flowers.
Oh my gosh, that's quite a roof. Okay, this beautiful LEED certified building has just been completed. I understand there are some other LEED certified buildings in West Michigan. What else can you tell us about LEED certified buildings throughout this area?
Well, West Michigan has become a real leader in sustainable building. It's a lot of, we've had a ton of support. Forest Hill School District, all their new buildings are going to be LEED certified.
Oh my gosh!
We did
the very first one, the Goodwill Environmental School,
okay.
And that was a positive experience for them. They went forward with the rest of their building project to be certified. All the furniture manufacturers in town have been very supportive of both green building and LEED. So, Herman Miller, Steelcase, a lot of their new facilities are all also going for the LEED certification. So it's both something a public and a private sector thing that's going on. Mm-hmm. Recently, a church in town has gone for a LEED certification. So it's even working its way into that sector of the market.
The new YMCA.
The new YMCA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's a very exciting time to be, in the green building fields.
Now, Jeff is modest. He was the first LEED certified architect in Michigan.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations, Jeff.
But it's grown and it's mushroomed, and he doesn't want to be the only one. He wants
everyone to be a LEED certified architect.
That's right. I mean, to me, this is the way we should be building. It doesn't. Looking at this building, you wouldn't know that it was a green building, mm-hmm. other than possibly the roof on top. It's a very simple way to build, but it's a good way to build. It's a concerned way to build, and green design really does result in, I think, better buildings, mm-hmm. Because we do look at things like the energy efficiency, the mechanical systems, and we're careful about the materials that we select. Mm-hmm. These are things that prior to LEED, we never really did. We just we picked materials and selected systems, based on what our reps are telling us. But now, we really look at what it is that we put into a building, and sort of that extra set of eyes on how you put a building together, I think really result in a much better way to build, in a much better finished project. And
a much more energy efficient project.
Yeah, better for the environment.
Aware of the consequences of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's something they've been pushing for a while. Just how can we become more energy conscious when we're designing and building buildings?
Well, especially in this time that we're in, we're really conscious of our dependency on foreign oil, mm-hmm. and foreign energy sources. That the more that we can do to reduce the demand, the more we can reduce our dependency.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, architecture consumes what? In different periodicals, it said 36 to 48% of the energy consumption of the United States is in architecture and buildings. And so LEED is a very important part of getting that reduced, the energy consumption reduced.
Yeah, very much so. And I think it's also very good for communities. Part of the LEED certification is that the materials come from within a 500-mile radius.
Ah, okay.
So you're actually as we do LEED buildings, we're supporting our local economies, mm-hmm. which I also think is a very important thing to do.
And another development that's really important is it's not just new buildings. It's now going back and certifying existing buildings and making changes that can make them more efficient. And so it's not just looking forward; it's kind of looking backwards and saying, "Well,
okay,
whoops, but let's catch up."
Yeah, which is important. One of the parts of a new LEED building is what's called commissioning, mm-hmm. So that there's a third set of eyes that looks over, the mechanical systems, the wall assembly systems, to make sure that they're the most energy efficient and watertight and durable that they can be. LEED has expanded into what's called the existing buildings program. Mm-hmm. So they're going back in and looking at existing buildings. Mm-hmm. And one of the features of that is what's called retro commissioning. So you actually find the original design intent of the mechanical system, you go back, mm-hmm. and you review that. What they found is that 20% of the buildings that have gone for LEED EB so far, mm-hmm. has failed its initial retro commissioning, in that the system did not meet the original design intent for it. So again, it kind of goes back to the earlier statement that LEED buildings really do result in a better building because we're doing that commissioning up front to prevent those kind of errors and emissions that occur during.
So they're checking the timings and everything else on the HVAC systems and the lighting to make sure it's in compliance.
Yep. Yep. Everything from the building envelope to the mechanical systems, to the lighting systems, the power systems are operating and functioning the way that they were designed or intended to function.
Something that Jeff said that could could have been missed is that many of the buildings they're going back and looking to bring up never met the original intent. So all along, we were not just, we were behind in what we're trying to do. So it's not just bringing it to the future, it's actually catching up with where it should have been in the past.
Well, no, gentlemen, I really have enjoyed this tour of this marvelous facility with you, gentlemen. Jeff and Jim, thank you, and thank your company, Progressive Architects and Engineers, for helping you to design this beautiful new facility for the city of Grand Rapids. Thank you. Thank you.